Hi, everyone. I'm Corley Parker. Welcome to the Understanding Human Design podcast. I'm here today with Melissa Corley Carter, who's going to share with us why resilience actually is rocket science. So welcome, Melissa. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Karen.
So, all right, I just have to start because with not your formal background, because that would take us probably about 20 minutes to go through the list of everything that you've done. But I want to just start with some really important highlights. You were an astronaut.
No. I was not an astronaut. No. I wanted to be an astronaut. I spent 20 years wanting to be an astronaut, but I am not actually an astronaut.
Got it. But you worked for...
So I was an Air Force officer.
Got it.
And yeah, so I did a lot of, I've worked on, some rocket projects. I can actually call myself a rocket scientist.
There you go.
So yes.
Got it. So you are a rocket scientist. So in my head, that's like astronaut. So you are a rocket scientist by training with a 20-year journey of working to become an astronaut. And you had to go through the process of revising your dreams because that didn't end up happening for you, right? You are a minimalist marathoner. So tell me what that means. I don't think anything's minimal about a marathon.
Right. So minimalist running or barefoot running is really a style of running that's really all about being natural. So when I got into marathoning and then I found out about barefoot running, and so minimalist running is running in shoes that are running barefoot or running in shoes that are just kind of flat. Like they call it a zero drop. There's no heel. There's not a lot of cushioning. It's just kind of a flat sole. So it's really the idea that our arches are the arch support in our feet. And when we support them with orthotics and other kinds of support, they become weaker. And so that is actually our bodies are, when we put our bodies in heavily cushioned shoes, they don't work the way they were designed to work. And then you get injuries. So in fact, the more advanced running shoes have gotten, the more people have become injured from running. So the idea of natural running or minimalist running is putting the shock absorption and the strength back into your body where it belongs.
Okay, so you are a Air Force rocket scientist, barefoot running, PhD, human design specialist.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And you talk about resiliency. So when you say resilience actually is rocket science, talk to me a little bit about what that means.
Yes. So in fact, I have thought a lot about this, and over the past few years have really kind of come to an epiphany that, in fact, yes, resilience actually is rocket science. In fact, everybody loves to say, oh, it's not rocket science, it's not rocket science, but actually it is, and it being anything. I like to focus on resilience, but it could be anything. And because when you think about it, rocket science is actually about, in essence, going from where you are to where you want to be. It's about acknowledging progress and adjusting course. And it's about letting go to lift off. So we could go into little bitty details, but if you've ever watched a rocket launch on TV or in the movies, they're talking the whole time, right? They're, we've gotten to XQ, or if they're approaching the space station, they're saying how far away they are. There's always a dialogue, a two-way dialogue going on. So there's that acknowledging progress and celebrating, right? Everyone's cheering as soon as it lifts off the ground. And adjusting course, there's little thrusters firing. Like you don't just fire the rocket and off it goes forever. You actually have to course correct as you go, which is a huge part of resilience. And letting go to lift off, obviously the huge billows of smoke and flame, you have to let go of a ton of fuel and weight and mass for the rocket to actually get off the ground. So that also is really particularly with your systems, like quantum alignment, there's a lot of letting go, right? For us to lift off in life. We have to shed a lot of our baggage. And so to me, that analogy really is rocket science. So, you don't have to do any math. We don't have to do any equations, but the key elements are going from where you are to where you want to be, acknowledging progress and adjusting course and letting go to lift off.
Nice. So, so you worked for 20 years to become an astronaut. And I can imagine that was, that was probably what your childhood dream, right?
It was since 5th grade.
And then you didn't become an astronaut.
Mm-hmm.
Did you how did you adjust to that dream not coming true?
Well, it was a really big adjustment for me, and it was, what happened was that I worked all these years, you did all these things, and it turned out that actually I got LASIK too, because for a while they weren't allowing corrective eye surgery, but when they started, I always had bad eyesight, but I got LASIK, 20/20 vision, the whole deal, and it turned out that my pre-LASIK eyesight, like before I got surgery, was so bad that I was disqualified anyway. So, so I submitted my application, got to that part, and then it was the pre-LASIK eyesight. So yeah, total shock. I know you're a big theme of or a fan of the theme of shock and initiation. That was my shock event. Was that, that life dream being crushed, and it took me a while. It took me a while to adjust. I didn't really. I didn't know what to do at first. I literally had wrapped up my identity in becoming an astronaut. I told everybody I had ever met that I wanted to be an astronaut. So, so you said at the beginning I was an astronaut. I mean, for all intents and purposes, in my mind, I was, right.
Right.
So I drifted for a while. I was still in the Air Force. I was still kind of on a path that looked like success to the outside world. So it probably didn't look to anyone else like I was drifting. But I didn't know what to do. I didn't have a backup plan. So I just kind of started taking a few steps in different directions. I started learning about different things out there. And I think what happened for me was that it opened space for more possibilities of what I could do with my life. And what I have learned since then, in the period of, eventually I found my way to human design. But
it was a long journey.
it was quite a journey, especially coming from a world where, it was hyper intellectual and just like, respectable, serious people don't do woo-woo things like astrology, and so getting onto this path was very different from what I expected. But what I have realized over the years is that what I really wanted in wanting to become an astronaut was really cosmic connection. It was that innate feeling of oneness with the universe that I think when I was little sort of more like manifested itself in the tangible idea of being an astronaut. So I think that's, I loved looking at the stars. I was in awe of the cosmos, and so that said, oh, well then naturally you should be an astronaut. So what I've learned is that in fact, cosmic connection is an inherent birthright for all of us, so in coming to human design, I feel like I've finally come home to my true soul work. So it was really that shock of not having that dream manifest opened the door for the real work, so it was a process. It took me a long time, and it was a big healing process, but that's kind of where I find myself today. So
thank you for sharing that. I know, I'm going to unpack this a little bit because we talk a lot in our community, and I think in the personal growth and development community in general, about manifesting and envisioning and having a dream. And there's a certain sort of, I think maybe because we're so conditioned to formulaic thinking, well, if I just do step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, boof, voila, manifestation. And in real life, yes, sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. And it doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong or that the process is wrong. It just means that the way you're going to get to the fulfillment of whatever the intention is sometimes has twists and turns in the plot line. and sometimes they're disappointing. And I appreciate your honesty and your resilience to be able to bounce back and go, okay, now I'm going to reframe this desire to connect with the cosmos and go from astronaut to soul explorer and run barefoot while I'm doing it. So okay, so you run marathons. Now, I have run one marathon in my life when I was way younger than I am now. I lost a toenail. I think I didn't walk for like a month afterwards. It was not a particularly whoa, this was an enlivening process for me personally. Okay. And, at the same time, it was not the physical part of it wasn't really the hard part of it. I found in my very limited experience,
Mhm.
it was keeping my head in the game and not just crumpling into a heap and, in a fetal position and sob on the side of the road, right? It
Mhm.
was keeping my head in that sort of rhythm of 1, 2, 1, 2, right?
Yes, yes.
That was my experience.
Mhm.
But you're not just like, oh, I'm just going to run a marathon and like check that off my third line list. You have run marathons on different continents. Is that right?
Yes, one on every continent. Mhm.
Okay. So, okay, I love this. And so talk to me in the context of the metaphor of marathoning. How do you incorporate, I mean, obviously it seems obvious that there's resilience in it, but what do you do to keep yourself resilient while you're in the marathon?
Yes, so that's a really good question, and your 1 2 1 2 is a lot of it. It's over the years as I ran multiple marathons and trained for multiple marathons, and I am not fast, so training takes a long time for me. It was really about I spent a lot of time counting my breathing. Breathing in for a certain count, breathing out for a certain count, doing mantras in my head, but the biggest thing that I learned from all that was realizing that if you literally just put one foot in front of the other, one step at a time, baby steps, one foot in front of the other, and you cross the finish line. So I would start, I'd be doing a long run, like 20 miles, let's say, and I'd finish the first mile and be like, oh my gosh, there's 19 miles to go. And it just seems super overwhelming. But I would do my breathing and I do my mantras, and I would notice the trees around me and the nature around me, and eventually I would look at my watch and I would only have 1 mile to go, and so it was kind of like, it was a big aha for me, like, wow, 1 mile to go always gets there, no matter how far away it seems at the beginning. If you just keep putting one step in front, or one foot in front of the other, and taking one step at a time, you get there. So that was a key awareness for me that I have, tried to apply to normal life as well, and just share as much as I can. So yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. So you use human design.
Mhm.
Talk to me a little bit about what you do with human design.
Well, so I will say that human design is pretty new to me. I first found out about you in 2017 through a like Live Your Soul Purpose kind of summit, when I was just starting my own business as a coach. But the timing wasn't right. I didn't really jump into it, and so it was funny because I kind of unsubscribed from pretty much all the lists I subscribed to at that time. But even though I wasn't reading your emails, I could never quite bring myself to unsubscribe from your list. So stayed on the list, and actually didn't start reading the emails again until last year, 2020. Even before the pandemic, it wasn't really pandemic induced. It was just, again, I think timing was right. And found out about it, and really I had been writing my book about running marathons on the 7 continents. So I was working on that first, didn't dive into the actual human design specialist trainings until around October. So I've started it, but so it's new, and yet it feels old, like in that it feels familiar. It feels like the language my soul has been speaking like my whole life. So what I'm doing with it is actually incorporating it into this resilience philosophy, right? So my 3 stages of resilience, human design is the first stage. It's about going from where we are to where we want to be. And I'm incorporating another energy technique I've learned called energy leadership into kind of the second phase, acknowledging progress and adjusting course. And the energy leadership is all about identifying different levels of energy. So you talk about how there's a low expression and a high expression and everything in between on the spectrum. And energy leadership is actually a way to identify where you are on the spectrum. So level 1 being the low end, level 7 being the high end, and there's all the levels in between. And so it's kind of a practical framework for understanding the spectrum of energy levels. And then I'm about to jump into the quantum alignment system training as well, which will be the let go to lift off piece. So basically human design, energy leadership, and quantum alignment, I am incorporating into the framework of rocket science to do kind of an integrated resilience healing process.
I love that. I love that. So I just want to share this with you, theoretically. So my favorite place in the whole world is NASA, is in Florida.
Oh,
And
cool.
keep my secret. See, I have
Nice, nice.
failure is
Awesome.
not an option mug.
Nice. Awesome. I
A
love
lot
it.
of t-shirts.
I
But
love it.
I think the thing that always moves me about the space metaphor,
Hmm.
you know, and you embody this so beautifully, is that it really is about having a dream and not letting the impossible nature of the dream stop you from building it. And even if you don't get there, you know, the lesson is in the faith, the leap of faith that you take to craft it, and
Yes.
to see that even when you get to the end of it, if it didn't turn out the way you thought, there's something so magical there for you that gives you the platform to, if you will, launch into the next
Yes.
dream.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
so all right, so you have a book you, well, let me just say your website is resilienceactually.com,
It is. Hmm.
and you can go there and learn about Melissa and her amazing stories and all of her journeys near and far. And you, as you said, you have a book coming out called Running the World Marathon Memoirs,
Hmm.
and that book's coming out
It
May-ish.
should be coming out around the end of May. Yes, it should. I think it's on its way to the printer as we speak. So
Ooh,
yay.
awesome. Awesome. Well, congratulations. So
Thank you.
go check out Melissa's website, resilienceactually.com, and go get information about her new book, look at her coaching programs. And then you're actually going to be hosting a quantum alignment show about resilience is actually rocket science in
Mhm.
August of this year. And
Yes.
I'm sure you're going to be sharing more stories about your marathon memoirs and your quest to become one with the cosmos, which I think is so beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Karen. I appreciate it.